Hi, everyone, and welcome to Question Period Rewind. I'm Donna Skelly, Speaker of the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. We have a segment queued up from 1986, a big year for the film industry. That's when the Pixar animation studio first launched. Tom Cruise was fawned over as Maverick with the debut of Top Gun, and James Cameron released one of the top sci-fi films of all time, Aliens. Now, what was being discussed in Ontario's Parliament was far from science fiction. Let's take a listen.
All questions? The Leader of the Opposition.
The Speaker of this House.
Speaker, my question is for the Premier. I wonder if the Premier could indicate whether his government at any time indicated to the OMA that extra billing might be allowed in any circumstances, some circumstances.
Premier?
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to refer the question on to the Minister of Health, who attended all of the meetings. I did not, obviously. There's a wide range of things were discussed, but I'll refer the question to the Minister of Health.
The Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there were a broad range of discussions with respect to options that might be available to meet the requirements of the OMA, that they have some independent means to ensure that government would be responsive to negotiate in good faith with them. We, in fact, did discuss briefly the question of what was reported as the window, and we also discussed other things such as binding arbitration or continuation of the JCPC as well. So there were a number of options which we discussed in those meetings, which took place, as you know, over a considerable length of time.
Supplementary.
I want to put it to the Minister of Health that he has said in this House consistently, and I have all the times you said it, things such as no person in this province will be asked to pay more than the OHIP plan schedule. The government believes that this principle is fundamental and cannot be compromised. We will not and cannot consider a manner in which patients' rights will be bartered away in exchange for the release of some patients. We have committed ourselves to ending extra billing in this jurisdiction. Now, my question to the Minister is this. You have a situation today where doctors are withholding services, where there are problems all over the healthcare system, and it's all because of this kind of unbending, unyielding attitude. Today we discover that options have been made available to the OMA to extra bill under some circumstances. Now, I would like to invite the Minister, Mr. Speaker, I would like to invite the Minister this afternoon not to tell us what options were discussed, but to tell us whether he put forward an option, having cleared it with the federal government, having discussed it with the federal government, whether he put forward an offer to allow the doctors to extra bill under certain circumstances.
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I clearly indicated before that we discussed a number of options, all of which were rejected. The honourable member over there doesn't quite understand what discussions and negotiations are about. He obviously doesn't understand that you talk about a number of opportunities which might be available for us to provide an answer to the request of the OMA. I can tell the honourable members in this House that everything was flatly, outrightly rejected. And the honourable member has asked that question. I said we discussed it. It was discussed. And I can tell you it was rejected.
Final supplementary.
You can run, but you're not going to be able to hide on this issue. This is too fundamental an issue around this province. We know now from the newspapers that this option was discussed. We know that. Just as we found out about your amendments by reading the newspapers, we found out what you said at the negotiating table by reading the newspapers. We know it was discussed. What the public of this province, suffering today with job accident strikes, want to know is whether you made an offer to the OMA to allow them to extra bill under certain circumstances.
Order.
Mr. Speaker, the offer of this government has been to the OMA that we will work to put together an Ontario solution to ending extra billing.
That's right.
We made an offer to those people to discuss in a reasonable and rational manner mechanisms
Order. 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 New question. The member for Oakville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question to the Attorney General. May I come back to a matter which I raised with the Attorney General a couple of days ago with regard to courthouse facilities, and particularly in St. Thomas. The Attorney General will be aware that a situation exists there whereby victims and witnesses and accused are forced to occupy a 15-foot by 15-foot room awaiting trial, that it's the only place in the building that they can sit awaiting their trials. Now, with regard to that particular situation, is the Attorney General aware of it? Does he find this acceptable? And if not, what's he going to do about that particular
Attorney
situation?
General.
Well, Mr. Speaker, dealing with St. Thomas, and it's not different than a number of other courthouses. The courthouse is owned by the county. The lease is about to come due. We have said to the county that we are anxious for them to make improvements in the building, and the Ministry of Government Services is looking very carefully at other alternative accommodation that will be more suitable for the court than that the county has been able to provide so far. We hope that an arrangement will be made by the owners, the county, so that we can continue in this historic building. But if it is not, I have it from the ministry that appropriate solutions will be obtained to find adequate courthouse in the private sector.
Supplementary.
By way of supplementary, Mr. Speaker, putting aside entirely the overall problem of the inadequate courthouse, what is the Attorney General going to do about the problem I related to him? That is, the problem today of victims and the accused occupying the same room where the accused has the opportunity to intimidate the victims. There's no police protection. Fistfights have broken out. Will he look into providing additional accommodation to separate those two groups of
Attorney
people
General.
awaiting trial?
Mr. Speaker, in the first place, I don't accept that the conditions that my honourable friend has described occur with any regularity. It is undoubtedly true that people coming to a court frequently wait in the waiting room outside the court. People coming to the court will include witnesses, or victims, as my friend puts them, and the accused who is out on bail. That has been the situation in the province of Ontario all my life. If it should happen that a witness called by the Crown requires to be isolated because of the unpleasantness of waiting in a public waiting room, those arrangements can be, have been, and will be made in the future as required.
Final
Mr.
supplementary.
Speaker, I might advise the Attorney General that this morning I spoke to a Crown Attorney and the Sheriff of the Judicial District of Elgin, who confirmed that situation exactly happens frequently. There is no other place for these people to go. By way of further supplementary, Mr. Speaker, is the Attorney General aware that in that same building there are no fire escapes, there are no fire alarms, there's no sprinklers, and there's no smoke detectors? Will the Attorney General be more specific in ensuring improvements? Will he please ensure that the victims are safe while they're awaiting trial? And in a genuine offer to the system in this regard, may I offer to the Attorney General this smoke detector, a cheap way of ensuring some safety for the victims?
Order. Attorney General.
Well, Mr. Speaker, this business of handing a smoke detector is not really very appropriate. As my friend as a practicing lawyer knows, outside every courtroom in Ontario is a waiting room. The people who come to a court in Ontario have the opportunity of either waiting for their case to be called inside the courtroom or in the waiting room outside the courtroom. If you choose to wait in either place, you may run into people who will be witnesses in your own case, or who may indeed be the accused on bail in your own case, or the witnesses are accused in other cases. That happens in every courtroom in Ontario and has always happened. There are cases where it is an important matter that witnesses who are victims should have special facilities, special isolation to protect them from embarrassment or indeed harm. And in all those cases where it is the judgment of the Crown Attorney or the police that is required, or where the victim requests it, It will be, has been,
Order.
and will continue to be provided.
Order. New question, the member for Scarborough West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The question is for the Minister of Community and Social Services. Mr. Minister, last week I raised questions with you about the use of electric prods in the institutions for the developmentally handicapped across the province. You indicated at the time there were only 2 facilities using them, and you thought they were being reduced. I now find out they're being used in another facility. The Midwestern Regional Center has acquired a cattle prod. One person is actively being treated with this at this point, a transfer from Blue Water under the other regime's program, and the other person is being maintained with it, they say. All you have to do is show it to her and she responds. Do you not think it would be appropriate to have a moratorium in the use of this equipment until you make your decision about whether or not it is acceptable for use in the province of Ontario?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I will investigate the specific reference that the honourable member has just made, but I would remind the member that this particular procedure is used as an absolute last resort, and secondly, that it is used only for a very short period of time, because quite frankly, if it doesn't produce the results, then it's not used. There is a review going on at the present time, and I will take under consideration what the member has just suggested.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, I want to inform the Minister that the Midwestern Regional Center purchased this equipment from the United Co-op store in the local community for $60. Yesterday, my assistant went out to try to buy one, found one for $38. Could not believe that the bigger $60 unit was being used. It's at least 2 feet, almost 3 feet long, that prod. We purchased this little one here, which I've tried, and it hurts a great deal. It says on it, it is for animals, keep out of the reach of children, obviously not out of the reach of patients in the province of Ontario. It's 2 9-volt batteries in it. It is not medically developed equipment. It is for use for large domestic animals.
Supplementary.
Do you not think you should be providing adequate support to deal with these people humanely instead of treating them with this kind of equipment, which has never even been medically tested in the province of Ontario?
Mr. Speaker, the fact that in the majority of our facilities that in fact it is not used, as the member indicated, I had indicated 2, he has discovered a 3rd one. That would certainly be an indication that alternative methods of dealing with the situation are being found and are being used, and that's the whole thrust of the review and the report that's being prepared right now, to see whether in fact there is any need for it. Mr. Speaker, I would draw to the member's attention that this piece of equipment is not used on any resident, except that it is used first by the person who is going to administer it, to be sure that it is not unduly excessive.
Final supplementary.
On a point of order on that, Mr. Speaker, these things are not adjustable, number one. They only have 1 voltage regulation. The Darcy Place workers, in their contract, have it that they do not have to use this on themselves because it is so excessive. Let's be clear that it is not used by each worker before it's done, and it's true in one facility that is the case. There's a presumption, sir, of therapeutic value in what you're talking about. I want to raise with you the case of somebody in a Woodstock facility who was very self-abusive, and they didn't have the staff to deal with them appropriately, and so in the last desperate move, they sent him down to the Cedar Springs. After 2 months of this kind of shock versus therapy, the person came back, sir, in a very almost vegetable kind of fashion, finally realized he wasn't going to be prodded anymore and became very violent with the staff.
Question.
Has gone back and is back again. Don't you realize, Mr. Minister, don't you realize the terribly oppressive message that we're sending to these very vulnerable people, instead of providing with a very humane, kind of loving community which will maximize their potential and not demean them?
Minister.
Here, here.
Mr. Speaker, the difficulty that our staff and professional people have in some of our facilities is that the alternatives are not very humane either. There is no doubt about it that you can keep a person tranquilized through medication. You can keep him physically restrained by using a straitjacket. You can lock them up in a room all by themselves, but none of these procedures have any behavioral change effect. None. It doesn't change anyone. And the only reason that this process is attempted, and it is strictly an attempt over a short period of time to see whether or not it can produce any change, a change that will allow the person to be more independent and autonomous. It does work for some people. It does work. It doesn't work for others. That's the whole purpose of the review.
New question. New question, the member for York South.
Mr. Speaker, I want to ask a question to the Minister of Health. I wonder if the Minister can tell us how many elective surgeries are being canceled over the next 2 days. He must have the reporting mechanisms that will tell him that. He must have the reporting mechanisms that will tell him how many children who are going to have elective surgery have had that surgery canceled. And can he tell us how any cancellations could relate or might relate to the possible investigation of cancer? He must have information on that directly from the hospitals involved.
Mr. Speaker, we will be getting that information. In fact, there were some initial contacts made around the noon hour today. The information was not available for me to bring to the House. I will provide on Monday the information for the House by way of a statement to let the individuals here in the House know exactly what has transpired. It's my understanding from a report in the papers that those surgery cases are to be rescheduled over the next 2 weeks.
Supplementary.
Speaker, on April the 1st, 1982, the Minister of Health, who has since gone on to different things, stated, and I quote, "There is a legal requirement for hospitals to use committees if they are to retain their accreditation or teaching capacity." And then he goes on to say, and I'm quoting again, "I do not believe that hospitals can ensure patient care without the participation of physicians on these committees, and I do not expect many doctors can boycott them." Now, Mr. Speaker, the Minister will be aware that similarly as they did in 1982, the OMA has suggested and urged its members to withdraw systematically from membership on committees, which, as the Minister will know, has very important legal consequences and practical consequences in terms of patient care. Can the Minister tell us precisely what steps he is taking to ensure the continuity and the maintenance of the standard of care of patients in this province when doctors are systematically being told by their association to withdraw from committees?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I regret that, in fact, the OMA has seen fit to place themselves as a barricade or blockade between the physicians and their own patients by suggesting that this particular type of action is carried on. I don't think that it's appropriate, but the suggestions have been made, the advice given, and it has, in fact, Mr. Speaker, even been encouraged by some members of this legislature, regrettably. In any event, Mr. Speaker, I can tell the honourable members that where we are aware of the facts coming to light that, in fact, there is a wide disassociation from committees, that we will move to help any hospital that finds themselves in need. We have mechanisms in which we can follow up on those particular happenings, and if the honourable leader of the third party will provide me with the information of the events, I will certainly take the necessary steps to ensure that there is a way of monitoring the patient care inside those facilities. And in fact, I hope that he would provide me with information as soon as he gets it, although I can tell you that my area planning people from the institutional branch are monitoring all hospitals
Final
today
supplementary.
And
Final supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, by way of final supplementary, I have not been able to get a hold of the original letter from the College of Physicians and Surgeons that was written on April the 29th, 1982. But I can tell the Minister that there is a quote of it in the May 4th, 1982 edition of the Toronto Star, which clearly excerpts from that particular letter. Now, that letter makes the following very clear, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to ask the Minister why in his view, a similar position has not apparently been taken by the college and not yet been taken by his ministry, in which it was said, and I quote, "Further disruptions of longer duration would have serious implications for the health and welfare of those who need medical attention. Appropriate investigations have been made, and on the basis of information we're satisfied that essential services have been maintained, but we are concerned that further disruptions of longer disruptions would have serious implications for the health and welfare of those who need medical attention." Can the minister tell us why the college is not issuing a similar letter, if indeed there is evidence with respect to the discontinuity of care?
Mr. Speaker, I think that what each of us will do is carry out the function which is mandated through the legislation. The college has indicated voluntarily to me by correspondence that in fact they will carry out their public role, protecting the public interest and ensuring in fact that there is a good quality care of patients in institutions or out of institutions as well, that they are prepared to move when that situation is brought to their attention. As the honourable members know, they have set up a telephone hotline as well, to have people be able to access their offices quickly in cases of need for information. And in addition to that, my ministry has lines as well which are available to ensure that patient care is provided. I can tell you that the College of Physicians and Surgeons has been to see me, and we have spoken on more than one occasion, and they have indicated quite clearly to me that they will carry out their role of protecting the patient's interests.
New question. Leader of the Opposition.
Minister of Health, I want to say your yellow and cynical attempt to blame others for the strike you have on your hands because of the disgraceful treatment your government has afforded the OMA in the negotiations will not wash and won't be tolerated.
New question.
Pretty shabby.
The minister has indicated after weeks of asking the House Leader where your amendments are to Bill 94 that you may have the amendments to Bill 94 for us this afternoon. I say to the minister, unless this party in fact has your amendments to Bill 94 this afternoon, you will not get supply in this House today. We've been waiting long enough for those amendments. You've shared them with the media. You've shared them elsewhere.
Order. Order. Minister.
Mr. Speaker,
that was really unexpected.
my colleague has risen to new heights, I think. And Mr. Speaker, I can tell the honourable gentleman opposite that we have draft amendments which we've been working on, which we've been refining. I communicated that to the honourable gentleman, and I can tell both him and the rest of the people here in this House that the amendments are being made available in their present form, and in fact, I sent a note over before the honourable gentleman from Lincoln was able to arrive in the House, asking if he was going to be here today. And in fact, I said that I would share those things with him today. I have given a previous draft to my colleague from Windsor Riverdale. I didn't give them to the Toronto Star, but I can tell you that the form of the amendments is yet to be finalized, but I told the honourable health critic that I would provide them to him today, and they will be there today.
Supplementary.
Remind the minister that this bill was originally scheduled for today. It was listed in the orders for today. The procedures invite, when time permits, amendments to be filed within 2 hours before consideration of the bill. The committee hearings finished a month ago. The bill was introduced 5 months ago. You've known and been trying to push this on for some time, and you are expecting reasonable discussion and passage in the next few weeks. Given all that, why would you have gone to the steps of telling the media, and through the media, the public, your interpretation of the amendments you'd like to try, sharing with them details of your amendments, without having the common courtesy, 1 month after the legislation was finished having hearings in the committee, of sharing them with the legislature from which you seek cooperation?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker,
The man who exemplifies common courtesy.
I accept the offer of the
You
leader of the
exemplified
opposition.
common courtesy.
Order. 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 I'll wait until the members. Quiet. Order. You're wasting your time. I don't mind standing here. Order. Order. Any further comment?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I was going to advise the honourable gentleman that we had worked very hard, as he knows, at coming to a negotiated settlement with respect to this particular bill. Well, I had very real and visible indications that we were getting close to a negotiated solution to this particular thing.
Yeah, you don't want to hear the answer,
I'm
Larry.
sorry, Mr. Speaker.
Order.
You don't want
Order. I will once again remind the members that interjections are out of order. Order. New question. The member for York South.
Mr. Speaker, I want to go back to the minister. I want to ask him, he will know that the Health Disciplines Act states, among other things, not only that it is an act covering, with respect to professional misconduct, having to do with the contravention of bylaws of the hospital, but it also states that it is a question of professional conduct in terms of failing to carry out the terms of an agreement or contract with the hospital. I'd like to ask the minister, is it his understanding that there is a kind of social contract that in exchange for admitting privileges and in exchange for a professional association with a public hospital, a member of the medical profession has a social contractual obligation to serve on the general work of hospitals and in particular on the committees of hospitals? If that is his view, we're still in the dark as to how he intends to enforce the act and how he intends to take steps to ensure that the work of hospitals, the care of patients, is not disrupted ad infinitum by the action that's being taken today.
Mr. Speaker, I think I've asked the honourable gentleman before, pardon me, to provide me with the details of the situations which he has first-hand information about, and we will provide our assistance in remedying those situations. I can tell the honourable gentleman that in relation to running the public hospitals, that falls to the mandate of the boards of trustees of those communities, and they do their job and they fulfill their responsibilities and look after the administration of their bylaws and protocols in their facilities the best way that they can. In addition to that, there is always the role of the College of Physicians and Surgeons when they have advice that there are problems being developing at the local level. They have indicated, as the hospitals have, that they will keep us informed. My area planning people in institutional health are monitoring the situation, and if action is required, the college has indicated voluntarily to me through correspondence that they are ready and willing to make their efforts available to enforce the provision of health care.
Mr. Speaker, the minister is giving us exactly the same answers, and he can go back to the answer of 1982 and see it, exactly the same answers that Larry Grossman gave the House in 1982 when he was the Minister of Health. Exactly the same answers. And I would have thought the minister might have come up with something a little different. What guidance are you giving to hospitals and to the College of Physicians and Surgeons with respect to the specific decision by physicians, A, to cancel elective surgery in cases where it may have been scheduled for many weeks, indeed months in advance, and B, their refusal to serve on certain committees, which by tradition, and I would say by social contract, they've been serving on for a good many years?
Mr. Speaker, I have not given specific advice to the college. They are independent of the government, as that honourable gentleman knows, and I am not in a position to advise them with respect to enforcing their mandate of ensuring the public interest. With respect to the hospital boards, they have an independent role to play. They are at arm's length, although we fund those institutions. They, with the operation of their executive, the administrators, will determine what action is required to ensure that the people who are serving in their hospitals are not providing care which jeopardizes patient care, Mr. Speaker.
New question. The Leader of the Opposition.
The Minister of Health, in response to an earlier question today, you tried to evade answering the question by suggesting there were options on the table for periodic, shall we say, extra billing, or extra billing under certain circumstances. You said, quote, the OMA rejected that offer. If the OMA rejected the offer, is it not fair for the public and this House to presume that since you were the only other party at the table, that the offer was made by you?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, the offer that was made was that we would look at forms of providing the medical association and their members with an independent way of ensuring that we would bargain in good faith, and that they would have some kind of independent forum to have, in fact, or that we would have an independent forum so that, in fact, they could have their advances or whatever their proposals administered fairly. That was the proposal put to them, and under that proposal, there were several items which were discussed.
agrees.
There was the JCPC type concept, which we talked about earlier, and which the OMA brought before the committee as being something that they felt had worked reasonably well. We mentioned the binding arbitration route, and there were discussions briefly with respect to that window option, which had been reported through one of the daily papers here in the city.
You can run, but you're not going to hide on this. It says, I want to quote, you said that was one of the options that was discussed with them. Now, my simple question for the minister is who put the option of being allowed to extra bill on some occasions on the table? Was it the OMA or was it the government? It could only be one of two.
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, that option was raised on various occasions by both parties, and we discussed it. And we Mr. Speaker, were party to those negotiations, and we worked with those people, and we had real indications that, in fact, there might be some acceptable discussions being taking place. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, that we talked about that option, along with binding arbitration and other things, and I can tell the honourable gentleman over there that he understands that during negotiations there is a wide discussion of the opportunities available for coming to a negotiated settlement.
No. We're going to check with Mo Carter.
New question. New question, the member for Ottawa Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister responsible for women's issues. And, Mr. Speaker, I wish to point out it's not to the Attorney General, it's to the Minister responsible for women's issues. The Minister must be aware that the question of equitable and timely access to abortion service is a women's issue. And I ask the Minister to put aside his role for a moment of Attorney General and tell us what he is doing as Minister responsible for women's issues to assure that the Liberal government meets its leaders' promises of equitable and timely access to abortion service for women in Ontario.
Minister?
What I am doing, Mr. Speaker, is what I did yesterday, referring the question to the Minister of Health, because it is a health matter.
I understand the question's been referred to the Minister of Health. Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker,
Order. Too bad other members won't have the opportunity to ask questions today. Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, as I indicated yesterday to a similar question. Mr. Speaker, I'll sit down.
Speaker.
Supplementary to the Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the Minister of Health whether he doesn't feel, as I do, that the Minister responsible for women's issues is playing a contradictory role in which he seems to prefer to be the Attorney General rather than the Minister responsible for women's issues on this matter. And doesn't he think, as I think, and as many of the women of Ontario think, that it's time he resigned his job of Minister responsible for women's issues if he doesn't want to carry out that responsibility?
Speaker.
Minister? Order. 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 I have to rule that question was directed incorrectly. It's not the Minister of Health's responsibility of what ministers are appointed.
Speaker?
He can redirect to the Premier.
I wasn't questioning the appointment. I was asking his opinion.
Well, you can ask questions regarding his responsibilities. Now, order.
Was asked a clear question, and you're not obliged to bail him out on it, Mr. Speaker.
Order.
The Minister.
Order. Order. I naturally cannot make any response to such a comment. I've ruled it out of order. This is question period. Order. There's nothing out of order as far as that goes. Order. Order. New question. The member for Scarborough Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of Education. Does the Minister of Education believe the Constitution of Canada grants the separate school system the right to discriminate in hiring at the secondary school level?
Well, Mr. Speaker.
Minister?
Well, Mr. Speaker, let me say at the outset that I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm disappointed because I've never, in 11 years of knowing the Leader of the Opposition, seen such an incredible display of bad manners. And this, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker,
Order. 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 Minister?
and this, Mr. Speaker, on a day when his very distinguished father is in our special visitors gallery.
Father.
I know that Alan Grossman raised his son in a better tradition than what we've seen here today.
Order. Order.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order?
The point of order, Mr. Speaker, we don't have to listen to that garbage.
Order. 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 The standing orders say that this is question time. Questions can be asked. Order. 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 Does the minister answer the question?
Now, Mr. Speaker, as I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, it is the view of this government, Mr. Speaker, as stated in this House and as argued successfully in the Ontario Court of Appeal, that in Bill 30 we seek in this province to complete a Confederation commitment, to complete one system of denominational schools in Ontario that will enjoy one set of consistent and clear constitutional rights and privileges. That is the case we have successfully argued in the Ontario Court of Appeal, and that is the case we submit to this legislature.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm aware, Mr. Speaker, that the courts have ruled that the separate school system has a constitutional right to the preferential hiring and employment practice at the elementary level. But, Mr. Minister, you are setting a dangerous precedent by placing in legislation the right to discriminate in hiring practices at the secondary school level. And I ask you, Mr. Minister, how can you condone such action?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, with all due respect to my colleague from Scarborough Centre, I say we are not setting a dangerous precedent, but rather we are completing an important and historic journey in the life and history of this province, a journey that was begun in its most recent phase by the very distinguished former member from Brampton and leader of the Progressive Conservative Party some 2 years ago. And I invite once again, Mr. Speaker, and I invite once again, Mr. Speaker, my colleagues in the official opposition to join the government in the completion of this journey which has presented itself to this 33rd Assembly.
New question. New question, the member for Oakwood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to send over, my question is for the Ministry of the Attorney General, and I would like to send over a paper presented by Roy McMurtry 3 years ago, and it's in regards to the statement that the Attorney General made in the legislature yesterday. Doesn't the Minister recognize and understand that the debate in this province is over in regards to the principles and goals and the desirability of having harmonious race relations in this province? That debate is over. We're all in agreement. And what specifics can the Attorney General provide us in terms of programs and laws which will break down the barriers that feed the systemic discrimination in our province? Will the Attorney General stand in his place and tell us that in this session his government will introduce employment equity legislation? 2, will release the data on visible minority youth unemployment, ready in 1994, and Larry Grossman did not allow it.
Well, thank you. Mr. Speaker, I made 2 points in response to the same question yesterday, which can be summarized as follows. First of all, a report was commissioned some 3 or 4 years ago about race relations in urban housing in Toronto. Some 49 recommendations were made in that report. They have been reviewed. We have adopted, as I said yesterday, all the principal ones, including 22, which are set out in the race relations statement. I agree with my friend. The debate has taken place. The report has been made. The principles are decided. The report recommended action. Nothing was done about it. On housing, we have done that. With respect to the report respecting minority women, the previous government funded a convention to receive their views and to have them make a report. They made a report, I think, in 1982. The debate is over. The report has been made. Nothing has happened. We have adopted, not all by any means, but in the statement yesterday, the principal recommendation of that report, which was to set up a consulting mode between the Women's Directorate and to begin to deal with these issues. So what we have been trying to do is take these old reports, meet the people who made them, say, now you have a government that's prepared to respond to these questions and take action.
Order.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, obviously the Attorney General does not realize that he's returning the debate back to 1983 or even before 1983. On page 5, the Attorney General states that, I'm also pleased to announce the Cabinet has agreed to ensure the qualified members of racial minorities are fully represented in the government agencies, boards, and commissions. Doesn't the Attorney General know that the Minister of Culture and Citizenship has already shut down that idea by stating that Premier's policy of appointing visible minorities and other members of multicultural community based on competence to all boards, commissions, and agencies, it is recognized that even with overt attempts, this is impossible. So what response does the minister have in terms of putting that principle again in that statement when culture has said it's impossible to do?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I've tried to make clear, I don't accept the assumption upon which the question is based, and my answer stands as it did.
New question, the member for York Centre.
Speaker, this question is for the Minister of Community and Social Services. In spite of the fact that we haven't had any answers to any questions today, we will continue to ask questions. On May 8th, the Minister told this House that his white paper on child care was about to be released soon. The Oxford Dictionary describes, just to help the Minister, describes soon not long after the present time or in a short time. Now, it is now the 29th of May, 21 days later. How soon? How soon? Instead of a flip answer, but how soon will it be before we get this white paper?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, the answer is still soon, but predicated on the obvious fact that we want to be sure that we've got a package together that meets the needs of the people of this province.
Well,
supplementary?
Mr. Speaker, it would be far better if the minister would tell us that he doesn't know, because his paper is probably in the same place as the paper is for the Minister for Senior Citizens Affairs, because it just keeps circling around. Let me ask the question then. Could the minister tell this House how he has allocated the additional $6 million in the budget for child care? Perhaps it's being used for courier service as it's being, their papers being delivered back and forth within the ministry.
Mr. Speaker, I can assure the honourable member that it's not being used for courier service. Mr. Speaker, the $6 million, as announced by my colleague, the Treasurer, is clearly designed to provide additional spaces. As the member knows, we have made a previous commitment to provide 10,000 subsidies. But the member also knows that simply putting the subsidies out there, making them available to parents, without having the spaces available that they can apply the subsidies to, makes it very difficult. And so therefore, the two of them have to go hand in hand. We are right now providing the additional subsidies. The $6 million will be used to provide the additional spaces. The two of them go together.
New question, the member for Port Arthur.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A question for the Premier. Bishop Tutu will be addressing this assembly tomorrow. The member from York South and my party have raised many issues relating to Ontario's economic involvement with South Africa. The Premier has asked the Treasurer to report to him and, quote, has said to investigate where our jurisdiction lies and, quote, how wide our reach is in these matters, end of quote. I ask the Premier, now that he has received the Treasurer's report, what concrete action will this government take that will have a practical effect on the events in South Africa and reduce Ontario's economic involvement in South Africa?
Speaker, the honourable member, let me repeat the policy of this government, which is to not involve ourselves in the business of South Africa, to register our disapproval in every way we can. As you know, the Treasurer has been investigating the situation with respect to his jurisdiction. I've had some information on that. I understand that the OMERS Board is meeting tomorrow on May 30th. I believe that's the day. And the opinion of this government has been conveyed to them and to other agencies, transfer agencies under our jurisdiction.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Premier, words and opinions are easy. Actions are what you judge a government and people by. I believe you've called on the private sector to make no additional investments in South Africa. Is the Premier prepared to state that those companies that wish to continue to do business with the Government of Ontario and that have an involvement in South Africa, companies such as Rio Algon, Moore Corporation, Dominion Textile, Bata Limited, and Ford, must now begin to divest themselves of their South African interests if they wish to continue to do business with the Government of Ontario?
Mr. Speaker, to my honourable friend, and I agree with you that actions do speak louder than words, and you know where this government stood when it made the initiatives with respect to South African wine and other purchases and others. Well, okay, all right, but just let my honourable friend, I just say to my honourable friend, and you can shout at me if you'd like to, but let me just allow you to think through what you've suggested. What are we going to do? Cut off Rio Algon? Lay off the people at Denison Mines if we don't do business with them? Well, think it through, my friend, and you will realize that you would be the same person jumping up in this house and saying, why are all the people laid off at Rio Algon and Elliott Lake because we enforced these things? Well, you can't have it both ways. And one of the differences, I think the policy of this government is clear. I think we have made a strong moral statement, unlike other governments in this particular matter. And, well, that's not right. I just don't disagree with you. But I ask my honourable friend to think through the responsibility in this matter. And I think that if he was charged with any responsibility, he would come to the conclusion that what he suggested, frankly, was not only unworkable but unenforceable, but could seriously hurt some of the people he wants to help.
New question? Member for Ottawa West.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Community and Social Services. The Minister may recall that on April 29th, I asked him about a future COMSOC funding for New Directions. That's an Ottawa group working on one aspect of a comprehensive program under the Regional Coordinating Committee on Wife Assault. My question, Mr. Speaker, is this. In view of the fact that the Minister's reply to me to the effect that the decision not to continue funding was one arrived at locally, and that reply has now been sharply contradicted by both the New Directions program and the Regional Coordinating Committee on Wife Assault, and in view of the fact that the committee chairperson, Joan Gullen, requested the Minister in her letter dated May 14th, and I quote, to set the record straight with your colleagues in the legislature and Mr. Bates, end of quote.
Minister.
Is the Minister now prepared to admit that his reply to me of April 29th was incorrect, and that he would now accede to Chairperson Joan Gullen's request to set the record straight in this legislature for all concerned?
Mr. Speaker, my reply, I believe, to the honourable member when the original question was asked was that the advisory committee, in fact, made the decision. I was incorrect in that. The advisory committee is, as the name suggests, an advisory committee. But let me repeat what I said at that time. The very strong recommendation, and as a matter of fact, the strongest part of that recommendation came from the chairman, who was just indicated, was that New Directions not get that money. And as a matter of fact, the two operators of New Direction are on that advisory committee. It certainly seemed to the officials in my Ottawa office that if they couldn't convince their own colleagues on that committee that were advising us as to the distribution of that approximately $900,000, that that's not where it should go, then that was a strong local recommendation, and I will correct the use of the word decision for recommendation.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, it appears that there is still a very, very clear and sharp difference between the Minister's response to this situation and the local response. And I would appreciate if the Minister would look into that, but I would also ask the Minister that whether, in view of the fact that in all likelihood the problem here is not who said what, but is shortage of funding, whether the Minister wouldn't assure us that this very worthwhile program dealing with the incidents and the results of wife battering will be getting further assistance from his ministry.
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I would point out to the honourable member that in the past year the Ottawa area got $951,000. That's almost $1 million. for this process. And if we look at the distribution of funds across the whole province, I would certainly have to suggest to him that Ottawa got its fair share. Now, whether or not there's enough money in the whole package, that is open to debate. But with respect to Ottawa's general share of that pot, I would suggest to him that they got a fair share. The second point I would make to the honourable member is that committee is meeting again at the end of this month, is again making recommendations to my Ottawa area office, and once again we will look very carefully at those recommendations and make our decisions accordingly.
New question. Member for Sault Ste. Marie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Minister of Health about the recent budget commitment of $850 million for hospital construction over the next 5 to 8 years. The Minister's regional allocation of these funds includes only a mere $25 million for Northern Ontario, representing only 3% of the total capital funding of the $850 million total. But even on a population basis, Northern Ontario has 10% of the province's population, and in terms of health care needs, I would venture to say it requires even more. Given the economic difficulties facing communities like Sault Ste. Marie and the need to move capital spending ahead in the north, will the Minister now increase the allocation of hospital funding in Northern Ontario?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, the allocation with respect to that phase of the capital plan for hospital construction in Ontario is in addition to the already existing programs which are underway, and you will be familiar, Mr. Speaker, as will the members, with the fact that there is an LCAP program which is also providing some additional beds up in the northern part of Ontario, that in fact there are other opportunities available for construction of facilities in Wawa and other places where we have provided assistance for upgrading facilities and in fact repairing facilities which need the expenditures made. We have commitments to improve those facilities, and Mr. Speaker, that allocation is made on the basis of the commitments at the moment that are well known, and we will be looking obviously in the second phase of our capital program for a more intensive look at how we can modernize the rest of the hospital facilities.
Supplementary.
He calls it first phase, but the first phase covers starts over the next 5 years and completions over the next 8 years. On Tuesday, the Minister was up in Sault Ste. Marie, and I'm sure he was briefed on the need to replace that aging facility, the Plummer Hospital, and the need to construct a central services unit to connect with the General Hospital. The local community and the Chamber of Commerce have been recommending to the government that this major project, representing $60 million alone, be brought ahead in the government's timetable in order to improve health care in the Algoma district. Will the Minister now re-examine the timetable for the Plummer Hospital project and other major potential projects in Northern Ontario and assure us that a fair share of hospital funding is allocated to the north?
Mr. Speaker, in fact, I know of the plans for building the central services in those hospitals in Sault Ste. Marie. I can tell the honourable gentleman that it's very difficult to move planning steps ahead significantly. There are steps that have to be taken all the way along in the planning. They are in the process now of making the plans. They have submitted, the two hospitals that is, submitted for approval to the DHC and have received approval of the DHC of their plans for sharing those central services. That has come to my ministry in the month of March, and we are examining those. We have sent back for some clarification on a couple of points. I can tell the honourable gentleman and the members of his constituency that in fact we have that particular project under close consideration. And in addition to that, Mr. Speaker, I can tell the honourable gentleman that I have indicated to the current chairman of the District Health Council that I'm willing to meet with him and the mayor and the administrators of the city of Sault Ste. Marie to deal with that.
New question. The member for Essex South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Agriculture and Food, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure that the Minister of Agriculture and Food is aware of the very terrible situation with the Ontario tomato paste industry, with stockpiles and goods not being able to be sold because of cheap imports from Europe. I want to ask the Minister of Agriculture and Food, Mr. Speaker, whether or not he has made representation to his counterpart in Ottawa as to what action the Government of Canada is willing to take in order to prevent these cheap imports from coming into Ontario.
Yes, when the federal government first indicated that they might provide some financial assistance to the Southern Ontario Tomato Cooperative and asked for the Ontario government to perhaps share in that program, I made a special trip to Ottawa and I spoke to my counterpart and I asked him if he was prepared to limit the amount of tomato paste that was coming into this country if indeed he was going to support another endeavor which would be increasing the production of tomatoes, particularly in that part of the country where tobacco has been grown, and now it's being, the reduction in tobacco is quite drastic, as we all know. So I have spoken to my counterpart, and I've asked him to do all in his power to limit the amount of tomato paste coming into this country.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, supplementary. The minister is well aware that under the programs of the previous government, large amounts of money were given to different industries to, in fact, expand their tomato paste industry. Is the minister going to, in fact, keep a close eye on the production levels of these particular industries so that the farmers who have made tremendous investments will not be harmed?
Minister?
Yes, we certainly will be keeping an eye, and we'll be doing everything in our power to see that we can retain our present production or even increase it. But here again, we have to have the support of the federal government to limit the amount of tomato paste coming into this country. If we could restrict the paste coming in, then there's no question there would be all kinds of opportunity for extra production of tomatoes in the province of Ontario.
That completes the allotted time for question period.